When you know that you want to be parents and you're part of the queer community, you also know that there are a variety of different ways that it can happen. And sometimes it takes seeing a friend go down an avenue that looks beautiful and is working for them that reminds you that that's an option for you. And today I have the opportunity to sit down and chat with Michael and Andrew, who adopted their biologic siblings, Austin and Mariah, through the foster care system in Missouri. Welcome to the Becoming Baby Ready podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. Welcome, everyone. I am really excited today to be speaking with a pair of dads who are Michael and Andrew, and they join me from Missouri. And so welcome to the two of you. Please tell us who you are and about the members of your family.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for having us. I'm Michael Lavanier, and this is my husband.
Andrew Van Alsdal.
But yeah, like Sam said, we are from St. Louis, Missouri area, basically smack dab of the United States.
There you go. There you go. And
So
tell me about your family.
Yep.
Go ahead.
So besides us, we have two little ones and two dogs. So we have Austin, who is age 8, Mariah, who is 6, and then our two pups, two golden doodles, Hanley and Harlow, who are 11 and 9.
So they were your first babies.
They were, yes.
And they didn't break you, so you thought, okay, we'll do this with humans then.
Yeah, that's true.
They make their kids easier sometimes just because the
Yes.
dogs are there to play with the kids and love on them too.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And golden doodles tend to have a pretty gentle temperament that they'll withstand an awful lot of whatever the kids can throw at them, I
Yeah.
assume.
Yes. Yeah.
Good kind of dog to have for we had a golden doodle for a number of years. My stepdaughter was besties with him. She'd crawl in the crate and hang out with him. He was crate trained, and that's where they would hang out.
Yeah.
And then we knew where she was too. So
Yeah.
actually it was
Yeah.
a handy thing. Um, Tell me first, how did the two of you meet and get together? And tell me your little love story before you decided to add humans to it.
Yeah. So we've been together, April will be 5 years. At that point be marriage for 2 of that. But pre all that, I had just recently moved back to St. Louis area. I grew up here, went to college, lived in a few other cities, came back, was in the dating world at that point, and online dating for Hinge was first time for me. So that was a fun new experience, but that's how I met my husband now. So it worked well for us. And that was something early on in conversations that being in previous relationships that I wanted a family and kids and a bigger than just us kind of thing. And that was something that he and I aligned on early on and was very important for both of us. So it was almost kind of like a first, second date conversation kind of thing. We made sure that was upfront and forefront. You want to add anything else?
Yeah, I mean, the conversation was pretty easy. I mean, he had twin niece and nephew. I had 9 nieces and nephews. I'm the
Wow.
youngest of 4. So grew up with kids all around. So it was an easy conversation for us to have.
Yeah. And the niece and nephew for me were one of the huge reasons why I wanted to move back home and be near them. I was like, I don't want to be the uncle that's MIA most of the year and shows up for holidays. Like, I want to be there for the basketball games, the recitals, all the fun stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you can be in the same town, and then that just sort of feeds into wanting to have a family of your own as well, though, right? Because then you're thinking, okay, I've got a niece and nephew, or several nieces and nephews, and
Yeah.
if I'm having children, if we are going to go down that path, I want them to be able to grow up with their sibling, their cousins rather.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for us, as we'll dive into it later, our kids are obviously adopted, but we also fostered them first. And as Andrew mentioned, they're 6 and 8. My niece and nephew are 8 years old, so they slot in great, like they play along great age. And then on his side, he's got some that are, I think the youngest is 9.
The youngest is 8.
8.
So about to turn 8.
So yeah, 8 all the way to like 22.
Yes.
So there's a wide range, and they get to all hang out and entertain and play and have fun together.
Yep.
But that also gives you babysitters, right? That are family.
Yeah.
I would think.
That's a huge reason we are very thankful. My parents and his parents live within like 45 minutes of us. My sister's 15 minutes kind of thing. So I'm like, if we need a break or babysitters for the weekend, like they're more than happy to help us out, which is great. Yeah, I don't know how people do it without family nearby.
Right. I think it ends up becoming just whatever you become accustomed to. If you didn't have family
Right.
around, you'd figure it out.
Yes,
But the gift is that
exactly.
you have family around, so you don't have to figure it out. It's kind of how I think I would break that down. That at least that's my experience. I don't know.
Yeah,
Different for everybody.
it's definitely true.
So you decide, okay, we know from really early in the relationship that we want to have a family. But when it comes to queer community and queer families, now we have to think about how we're going to make it happen because it's not going to be an extra glass of wine on a Saturday night that results in a baby. So
Yep.
how do you make those decisions? Who's going to carry a baby for you, or is someone going to carry a baby for you? Are you going to adopt? Are you going to do it publicly or privately? Like there's a lot. There's a
Yeah.
lot to break down. So where did you start?
I would say we initially were open to everything.
Okay.
I think for me personally, I always thought the path would be surrogacy. I'm very fortunate, like my company has a policy where they give you so much money towards stuff like that, any sort of infertility, etc. So that was always the path that I saw, while very expensive, the
Mhm.
easiest.
Right.
But then I'll let him talk a little bit more about kind of what he's seen from his side that also helped bridge things together for us.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we've seen a good amount of non-traditional family within our own like close family and friends. Like those getting adopted, whether that's just, a heterosexual couple adopting a baby either locally, kind of like within our own state, or even, internationally. That's always been something that I've kind of grown up around. But the one that hits closest to home is one of my best friends. She was a foster mom, and it's actually my sister's best friend, but known her for 20 plus years at this point. She's a single woman, and she's just like, I really want to have kids. Like, I have this deep inside me that I want to have a family and have kids. And for her at the time, the dating pool in the world was not the best option at the time. So she found foster care within the state of Missouri. And her heart just broke, just with the number of kids in foster care needing someone to help take care of them. Because her initial reaction going into it wasn't like, I'm going into this so I can adopt a baby or have a baby or whatever that looks like.
Hmm.
It was just to help. It did turn into her, I think it was about her probably seventh or eighth placement, honestly, of getting her now daughter in her care. And she was very young, infant age, came into her care. And it just went down the path of termination of parental rights. So she got to adopt the child. And now it's been great because actually our kids were in her care before they were in our care because she was a foster parent for them.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like she's become a pseudo aunt, and it's been great. And her daughter is like another cousin, sister to our
Close in
kids.
age.
Yeah, they're within like a year apart. She's right in the middle of our two. So that really got us thinking about just the other available options to have kids come into our lives. And so obviously adoption was on the table. We talked about that early on, surrogacy. But foster care is something we kind of aligned with, that similar need of like, we see all these kids that just need someone to be there for them. So when we got into it, it was like, we're just here to help.
Mhm.
And we really lucked out in the sense of the two that first came to us are now our, but not our biological, but our adopted kids,
Right.
which isn't always the case for foster parents. It
No.
usually isn't.
Yeah.
But we were very fortunate to have that be the case because basically from day one of them entering, we knew it was leading down the path of adoption, and we treated them like they were our own as soon as they stepped in our house, which was a really, really great experience. Tough, but great.
Yeah.
Sure.
So at the end of the day, it was more, for me, since I mentioned the surrogacy was kind of the easiest path that I saw,
Right.
it was an education piece for me because I never really thought too much about the foster system and what that could potentially look like.
Right. And I think many people don't until that's what they're faced with, unless they grew up with it. I think of people like my wife talked about that, about us doing that because her grandmother had fostered children. So she'd witnessed family members doing that. So for her, it was kind of like, well, why don't we consider going that route? I, I think, Michael, when we were speaking before doing our pre-record call, you mentioned the numbers in Missouri for children in the foster care system are quite significant. Is it higher in Missouri than it is in other parts of the U.S. or do you know
Yeah,
that sounds like more
it
people
is.
like you are out there needed out there.
Yeah, it's definitely Missouri tends to be on the higher side for number of foster kids, especially like per capita within the state. And unfortunately, it's the way the laws are set up within Missouri's foster parent slash child care laws. A lot of states will give the bio family more leniency and financial aid to make it more possible for them to keep their children in their home. um, Missouri's laws are a little different in the sense of they don't really provide the financial aid to the bio family up front, unfortunately. So it's more often and they're taken from the bio family because then the bio family doesn't have the resources to provide food and shelter that are
Right.
the requirements for child safety and health and wellness. And then they kind of provide it on the back end to the foster parents. So the system is definitely flawed in
Right.
that respect. So when you look at the numbers on paper, Missouri seems exponentially higher, and that's one of the reasons why.
Okay. So you said that the children that are now in your care and have become your children
Mhm.
were in the care of a friend. How
Yes.
did they end up with you? Were you already licensed foster carers? Had you been through the whole training process and everything else? What happened
It's a little bit of both and.
Yeah, very, I would say a pretty unique
Yeah.
situation.
So our son Austin, who's 8 years old, we, my friend actually had him in her care back in the summer of 23. So we actually met him through her because we were around them a bunch. And that was really what got those gears going for like, I think foster care is something we want to look into and learn more about. So beginning of 24, we started the licensing process, which is about total, I think 20 hours when it's all said and done to get foster care license in Missouri. In that time, within the beginning of the year, our son came back into care from a previous foster family, and now his younger sister was with him. And since our friend had had him prior, she got both of them now in 24 as an emergency placement. So that was good news for us because our son Austin's really the one, truthfully, for me, that got us really thinking about foster care. So we were excited that he kind of was potentially back in our world, and that could look like a forever thing for us if we timed it. We
there?
could time it. That was completely out of our hands kind of thing. But like
Right.
the world and God and all that kind of timed it perfectly to where it lined up with when we were wanting to do it. And so typically it's about 90 to 120 days to get licensed and all the paperwork filed and all that. We got ours in like 30 days. um,
Wow.
because we had met him before. We were going through the classes, and our licensing worker, she was like pushing full steam ahead. She's like, I want this for you guys if this is what you want. Let's make it happen. And so he was able to come into our care in April. Mariah, our daughter, was able to come into our care in March. It just kind of worked out a little bit better since she was only in daycare to get her earlier and help our friend out that way. And then Austin, we tried to have him finish his school year in a different city just so he wasn't bouncing around so much. So we were able to get him in our care in April and then have him finish his school there for about a month, and we just drove him back and forth. But yeah, pretty unique situation of going into foster care and already knowing that the cases are going towards parental termination. They're going to be up for adoption. So, like I said, once they came into our doors in our home, like we knew had a very, very high chance of being a forever thing.
Yep.
Which is one of the fears that people have about the idea of fostering and thinking, well, maybe somehow through this journey of becoming a foster parent and providing safe refuge for children who truly need it, that maybe these children that we develop an emotional attachment to will be able to become our children. And a lot of times that doesn't happen for whatever reason. So it must have felt like you're trying not to get your hopes up, but you kind of were put in a position where you did.
Yeah. And I mean,
For sure.
there was a lot of what ifs in the air, and I think he was more assured on it and when it got closer to the adoption day and all stuff like that. But honestly, like leading up until that day, until the judge like finalizes it, I was just like, there's technically still a chance. Like I don't know what the percentage is, but there's still a chance. And with the way things were kind of going in the world at the time, I was like, our kid's case was in a more conservative area because it wasn't our county, it was a different county of the state. And it was like, that judge could be someone that has, doesn't really care for the LGBTQ community and doesn't really want this for our kids, let alone any kids. And so thankfully that wasn't the case. But like those are the thoughts running through my head going on at the time in the world and everything. And we got there, and it thankfully was kind of basically the complete opposite of all my fears because we got there, we filed for adoption in December of 24. The like Christmas Day, basically, their hearing wasn't until December of 25. So we waited almost a whole year to get it finalized. And their legal representation was like, I've been waiting for this case all year. I'm so excited. She's like, you were literally case 001 for 25. Like, I'm so excited that this day is coming for you all. So like that was like we walked in the doors and that's what we were greeted with. So it was a huge relief and like excitement. And so they're like, yep, adoption court hearings are once a month in this court. And so when they happen, it's a day of celebration. And they're like, just as you've been waiting, as long as you've had them, she's like, I've been waiting this entire year for this day to come. I'm like, that's awesome.
What a feeling when you walk in and have somebody alleviate some of your anxiety that way.
Exactly. I was like, I have almost no minimal courtroom experience. I'm like, I have no clue what to expect. And the lawyer, like that's his job at his family court. So like he did his best to like answer all of our questions and quells and needs and all that. And so it was definitely, there was a lot of support along the way. And it was a fun day to be able to drive a little bit, and my family and his family and some of the like nieces and nephews showed up. So we had a group of like 15 people in the courtroom. And the judge literally made me stand up and introduce all of them. So.
I feel like I've seen this in a movie.
Yeah. And there's some other people in the room. I was like, and I don't know who you are, but hi. I was like, you were here for us, I guess.
I just love that. Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back. You know you want to start a family, but you're really not sure where to start, what questions to ask, who is your best person to connect with? Well, I would say that the best person to connect with is Sam from Baby Ready. We have connections and resources, answers to questions, and we have been helping support families for over 25 years. So when you are looking to start the process of creating the family of your dreams, look no further than Baby Ready. You can learn more about the services we offer and the places you can meet us in person at www.babyready.info. Now you said, Michael, that there was something about Austin what was it? Because he was the first one that you met because he wasn't placed with his sister at the time that you first met him, but he's the one that kind of made you think, actually, this feels like this is the right path. What was it about your connection with Austin that made you feel that way?
I'll actually let Andrew answer this one unless you don't want to for some reason, but he was kind of the one I think who started that conversation, and I was like on board. I was like, I agree with it. Like that's something that's been on my heart is just foster care in general. And I think for him, and I'll let him speak more, I think Austin may have been the one to kind of like crack that open fully.
Yeah. And there was a time, I honestly don't even remember if it was before Austin, before when Austin was in the care of our friend the first time, or if it was during. But I remember being on like adoption websites saying, "Oh, here's one." Well, I know that sounds bad, but like, oh, this
No,
one,
it's
and like it just tugs at your heartstrings when you're
Yeah.
looking at that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, I can envision this, and so.
yeah.
I always go back to this one time where we were at someone's birthday party, and it was just I was helping Austin out, and he has some delays, and he is on the spectrum and ADHD, and it's like just trying to help him navigate. Like, for example, it was a place where you get tickets and then you have to go get your prizes.
Hmm.
And like he was really struggling with what to get with his tickets. And it was just kind of it was kind of just a moment of, I could see this being a real thing. Like there's struggles there, but there's also so much that can be gained from it, and so much, empathy for him, and just really the excitement of the potential of kids.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and I think the
yeah.
only thing I'll add to that is like when he went to go be with a different foster family after our friend, like both of us were genuinely like sad and heartbroken, like because we hadn't had the full conversation of like, all right, this is the year we're starting our
Yeah.
licensing, like we're going to go through with this. Um, and so I was like, okay, there's got to be something here. If both of us are having a similar feeling of like loss and the
Mhm.
fact that like this little boy is no longer at the time we thought no longer going to be in our world, even if it was like kind of a small dose of it, like we said, a friend through a friend kind of thing.
Yeah.
um so we were very overjoyed when like we hadn't told our friend that we were starting our licensing in 24, and then we were at church like 2 weeks later and she was
I
like
feel like it was the same.
it might have
It all
been.
Like,
It
all
might have.
happened so
It might
quickly.
like we hadn't told anyone like, hey, we literally are signed up for the classes. Like we're doing this. It was like so shortly afterwards that she was like, oh, by the way, I got a call from my caseworker. Austin and Mariah are coming back into care in like a week or so, and we're like, oh, like we were like,
we're literally just having this
yeah.
conversation.
I was like, what in the world? I was like, that was crazy, but it was awesome. Like the heavy and reality side of it, it was our kids have gone through so much up until that point. Like
Sure.
we don't want to minimize that at all to know what they've gone through to
No.
get to even that day back in January of 24.
Mhm.
But like in the best way possible, like that little spark of hope is like what has basically changed our path forever. And we're super thankful for them and for that.
Yep.
Yeah. And until Mariah was with your friend, you hadn't met her before, but Austin and Mariah are biologic siblings. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yep, they are
Yeah.
biological siblings. We had heard about Mariah, and we've seen like pictures of Mariah, but never met her or anything like that. And until January of 2025.
Yeah.
Wow.
24, yes. Sorry.
It's a blur.
It's
Any parent can tell you
yeah.
it's a blur. It just all blends
Yes.
Yeah.
together. Right. Okay, so you meet these children, you decide you're going to get your license. You are rapidly have these children placed with you, and then you're full on parenting. And what does that look like with respect to how did they have time to get to know you before they were placed with you? Do they have a connection at all with their bio parents? How do you navigate all of those systems?
Yeah, so we definitely ramped up to it in terms of when they were officially with us. So when we started our licensing process, we were still unlicensed, but under prudent parent law, we could, given that, our friend had them as foster children, it was really up to her how much anyone can be involved with someone.
Right.
So we started doing little trips in terms of like, we'll go to the science center or a museum or something like that. And so we started slowly doing that. And then we would have like one night on the weekend, Mariah initially would stay all night with us, and then she would go back and started doing that on weekends until we slowly ramped up until to the full term a couple months later. Austin, same thing. Once we got Mariah in, we got her settled a little bit more. We would bring Austin in for one night a weekend before we officially got him. And during that time, there was absolutely zero contact with biological parents. Dad had never been in the picture.
Okay.
Mom was still not able to even see them. So I can tell you, like, during our entire time with the kids, they have not talked to their biological mother one time. We just recently, they do have an older half sibling who, had her own struggles. She's a little bit older. And very recently, about 6 or so months ago, maybe 3 to 6 months ago, we actually started having weekly phone calls with her to really make sure that they keep that bond, because I think it was important for both sides, older half sister and the kids.
Yeah, and like we got to the point with the older half sister that we were able to do like a mini family Christmas dinner. We went out, like met her. She's still, even though she's older, she's still in the foster care system. So her and her foster mom met the four of us, and we went out to dinner. And that was a really cool experience because we got to she was sitting next to Mariah, and I was just like in a good way to dissecting like all the similarities. I was like, this is wild to me to like meet someone that looks like your kid. Like that's so
Yeah.
strange. And it was like it was a heartfelt moment. I was like this, I was just like soaking it in. It was so cool. Um, but yeah, the communication with the bio family, technically mom terminated rights back in August of 24. So leading up to that point, we had only ever seen her, Andrew and I had seen her on what's called a family support team meeting.
Mm.
That's put together by the caseworker, the licensing worker, and all that. And it happened once a month, once a quarter.
Uh,
It wasn't
every
super,
6 weeks or
yeah, it wasn't super frequent, and it's optional for the bio parent to show up. Like we would have the meeting either way. And I think we had probably at least 4 or 5 of them in our time with bio mom being in the, technical picture. And I think she showed up to like two out of the 5. So she all her ask was if we're able to send pictures, so which we have been doing here and there through the kids caseworker.
Right.
Now that they're adopted, we no longer have a caseworker, so like that communication's a little harder. But definitely want to still feel like we recognize like they are biologically yours.
Mhm.
um Legally they are ours now, but there's still going to be forever that bond there. Like we
Yeah.
can't deny that. And I think the least we can do is provide updates on how her kids are doing if she still wants those. If she tells us to stop, we'll stop. So
It does have the potential to make it a little bit easier for your own children when they get to be an age where they have to make a decision for themselves, consciously or unconsciously, whether or not they want to know more about where they come from and who they come from and that kind of thing. If there's been at least some attempt at an olive branch being extended on your part to her, right?
yeah, and I mean, I feel like we've done a decent job of like the best we can with the information given, like keep
Sure.
tabs on the bio parents, like and stuff like that in the way that like so we have that on record. Like if our kids say like, hey, I want to reach out to them, like be like this is the last contact information we have, like we'll start there.
Yeah. And that's just making sure that your children know that you support what they feel is in their own best interests, right?
right.
And
Yep.
and
Yep.
and at 8 and 6, they're not there,
Right.
but at some point they might be, right? And
Yeah.
so you just want to think about future them, not current
Yes.
them, right? Is your family complete now? Or are you thinking that you may you may go dip a toe back in? I like
For
that you're
now.
looking at
For
each other,
now,
because that
we
looks uncertain.
yeah, I mean, for as far as fostering goes, we are kind of at the crossroads where we had to give a decision, like if we want to keep our license open,
Right.
we can be on pause, I think for only a couple months, but basically if we kept it open, we would have to have a kid within our care within X amount of months. I think it's a 6 month window. Um, and unfortunately for us and our licensing, just like timeline, we're at that 2 year mark. So where everything has to renew in the state of Missouri is about a 2 year frequency. And the kids have been in our care pretty much that whole time. And so for us to take in another kid within a 6 month window of now, well, basically it was a couple months ago, and now uh I've we feel like is not the best move for the family at the time. It was
Mhm.
like we're still like school and everything, like we're creating an equilibrium to grow from. And I was like, I feel like that'd be a really big shakeup to introduce a new
Sure.
person into that, whether it's an older kid or an infant, like whatever that looks like.
Yep.
And I was like, let's keep our kids forefront and center of our hearts and minds of like getting them going on the right foot. And like, yeah, maybe in a few years kind of thing. Like that is kind of the beauty, in my opinion, with foster care is like you could get like a 12-year-old. So it's like in a way you almost regain those years
Hmm.
versus like, or it could be a newborn. Obviously we're both males. We don't necessarily have the biological clocks that women have, but at the same time, it's like if we're both approaching our 40s and we're like, oh, here's a newborn, that's a
That's
that's
right.
a
That's
big
a big.
step.
That
But it's like
is.
if you're in your 40s and you're like, hey, here's a 12-year-old that needs care, needs help, like okay, like it's like you had that kid in your care from when you were early 30s or late 20s. Like it creates a different mindset for me at
Sure.
least. That helps rewind that clock. So you're like, oh, this is a little more like palatable to like do today and now.
Yeah.
And I would say selfishly, we decided to close our license because we know what it's taken to get to this point. Of
Yep.
course, when the kids came in, there were a lot of struggles.
Sure.
So we've been building on that for the past 2 years to get them to a more confident space, a more, tolerable space than what they were in previously.
Right.
So it's trying to continue to build on that, and we don't want anything to disrupt that. So call it selfish, call it whatever you want, but
Yeah.
that's like one thing we do not want to digress on is
Yeah.
the work that they have been doing, the work that we've been doing, the therapies every single night between one of the kids, and we
Yeah.
we don't want to have any backfall on the amazing progress that we're making.
Yeah. And that makes sense. Really, like you say, all you're doing is putting the kids' needs first beyond anything else. You mentioned speaking to therapists and things like that. Is that something that is supported or was supported before the adoption? Was that supported by your caseworker? Did the government sort of help provide that resource for you, or?
Yeah, so that's one of the great things about at least in Missouri, the foster care system is, our kids are on Medicaid, and so Medicaid takes care of pretty much everything. So we had been, our youngest was in play therapy. We have them both in speech therapy, talk therapy, occupational therapy, because when they first came here, there were still things they needed to work on. I mean, 2 years later, there's a lot that like they have accomplished,
Mhm.
but we want to still continue that because there are certain things that they still are a little bit delayed in. We just want to do as much as we can.
Of course.
And then, in addition, when you do adopt from foster care, they get to stay on Medicaid until they're 18. So all that is still covered, assuming, the doctors and the pathologists and whomever it may be still have to submit for the approval for them to get the visits paid for.
Right.
But Medicaid does take care of all of that. If they did not approve it, then yes, it would be out of pocket, and that's something that we would just have a conversation on and say, okay, we'll continue. And they also get that speech and occupational therapy through our school district as well. So we have it kind of in multiple places.
Yeah.
Mariah, our youngest, she's actually getting occupational therapy 3 times a week because she's getting it through school, and we have where we've always gone for occupational therapy that she goes every week for half an hour. But then we also recently added one with a more trauma informed therapist place that we'd like to go to that has an hour a month, an hour a week that we go to. So just trying to give every avenue, and they're all a little bit different. So it's not like she's doing the exact same thing at every place. So that's what's great about it.
Yep. Yeah, and even on like the more medical side, like we mentioned, Austin and Mariah both have ADHD. So as far as like medications are concerned, like if that's the route as a parent that they choose to go down, like that's something we've chosen, like obviously for them, and it's been helpful. But all medications are covered upon approval and stuff like that. But so that's been really helpful because it's like a lot of that stuff can be very, very expensive. And so having that support system financially and medically like has been really beneficial to them to be able to have those resources, and so that's been good for us.
One of the things that I've heard both of you mention more than once is the trauma that your children have lived through up in their very short lives up until the point that they came to be able to be permanently placed with you and start to feel a sense of stability, which I'm going to guess that almost 2 years in, there are times that they are better at feeling that than others. And that's like all of us with anything that's monumental in our lives. We feel safe sometimes and we feel unsafe other times. I just want to I just have to acknowledge that I have deep respect for the fact that if you've mentioned it as you both have on more than one occasion in the brief time that we've been speaking, it is something that is clearly in the front of your minds. And I can't speak on behalf of your children, but I'm very confident that they are supremely grateful that you honor and respect that for them because they are still so young and they've had so much of their lives formed by decisions made by people beyond their control. And so thank you for being the amazing humans that you are. No, I'm sure,
it's
I'm
not easy.
absolutely certain it's not easy.
Those first few months, it was very, very rough, to the point where we had to have real conversations to say, is this truly what we want? At the end of the day, we always have to keep the kids front and center.
I will say, I think that's for us, that was, and for me, I'll speak specifically for me, that's something that like it is a battle within your own heart and mind. It's like it sounds terribly awful to say out loud, but it's like you technically have an option out as a foster parent. Like if you're going down the path of adopting those kids that are in your home, like as scary and hard as that seems, it's like that honestly is probably the hard. It's like, yes, the kids can be a battle, but like that mental thought is something that there are times where it's like there technically is an easy option out. Like there's going to be regret and a lot of heartache tied to that decision.
Sure.
But it's a battle that you have to go through in reality. Like that's a thought that comes up and you got to battle it. And I can say now we're on the side where we can't go back.
Right.
And I'm glad we made that far. And I'm glad we went through those tough nights and those tough days to get to where we are as a family. Because I think selfishly, we wanted to learn about all the resources so we could make it quote unquote easier to be parents, but it was more so we can understand the thinking and the emotions and the heart behind why they're having those moments when they're tough and they can't express what they are feeling.
The trauma brain.
Yeah. Sure. It's like it's vastly different than a neurotypical upbringing kid. And so to be able to better understand that, one helps me have compassion and understanding and empathy but then also hopefully in practice gives me the tools to help them cope and get through and learn and grow through that process. Because in the end, like them getting through it and growing through it is only going to make life as a family grow better. And I was like, if you just watch them flounder in it, nothing's going to change. So,
No.
like, there's a selfish side of like, I want to learn as much as I can so I can help you because I think it'll be beneficial for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's probably the best gift you could give them is wanting to learn and grow to support them. And that just makes you want to be good parents, right? That and are actively trying to be the best possible parents you can be. I just think
Yeah,
it's
and
pretty amazing.
yeah, it's the mindset. There is a mindset change that you have to have of, why is this happening?
Mm,
It's easy in the moment to just kind of, yourself get dysregulated because of what's going on. So of
yeah.
course, regulating yourself is always the most important before you approach anything. But having that mindset of, okay, let me think about this for a minute. What changed in the past hour? Just staying curious on what's
Mm,
going on and just trying to think through that.
Yeah.
yeah.
And the little side note extra is you get to have the fun of explaining that to your parents who brought you up in a totally different way.
Right.
Because for myself, I would say I was in a neurotypical family and typical in the sense of like there wasn't trauma, there was obviously some minor stuff, but nothing like what our kids have gone through. And so when grandparents are watching them and they're trying to raise them like they raised me, I'm like, hold the brakes. Like there's gotta be some guidelines in place. Thankfully, both of our parents have adapted super well and they are listening to us and how we want to parent and how we want our kids to be parented via grandparents kind of thing. But yeah, that's can be a fun, awkward conversation at times up front with the grandparents.
Yeah. And because as grandparents, and at least this was my experience when my own children were little, I think my parents felt like if I did things differently, then that was my way of telling them that I thought they did it wrong. And the
Yeah.
circumstances were just different. And
Yeah.
so one isn't linked to the other.
Right.
But
Yep.
I think that they need, and once I slowed down, once I talked to them about that and said, okay, I get it. This is
Yeah.
what I think you're feeling. This is why I think you're feeling this way.
Right.
Look, I think you did a great job. Thank you very much for making me who I am. That's
Right.
given me the permission to be the parent that I need to be. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, this is how you parent? Rock on. Let's support that. And they couldn't talk enough positive about it. But it wasn't until I kind
Yeah.
of said, no, you did it right. They're like, oh, okay, I'm
Yeah.
good now.
Yeah,
Pat themselves on
exactly.
the back and off they go.
I think you hit it right on the spot. Like yeah, once we had that conversation, it's like it's not against you or anything you did. It's just our kids are different than us,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's okay, but we gotta support them differently to meet those needs.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of, I would think, it's not unlike, I mean, it is and it isn't. It's always very much different. But in the most basic of ways, it's not unlike making a permanent commitment to your partner in that you have to decide you're 2 feet in. I don't
Yep.
have one foot out the door.
Right.
I'm not going to quit these kids. I'm not going to quit my
Yeah.
partner. I'm in and I'm committed to being in. And then it must make it a little easier to go, okay, we're going to find our way through the hard times.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. And up front, it can definitely feel like you're in the middle of an ocean with no life jacket.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
And there's a giant storm headed,
I
and
was
it's
gonna
already
say the
there.
swells are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But thankfully, it's like if you keep your head on a swivel, there are people in our world we can speak to, our circle of friends and family that are more than ready to jump when we ask and be there in a heartbeat. And that's why we were able to get through what we did.
Yeah. And just us having a healthy relationship. If you don't have a healthy relationship,
Yes.
it's going to
sure.
be about 10 times harder because, if something happens to one of us with the kids being dysregulated, the other one can step in easily. The
Yeah.
other one can say, hey, you go take a break. I'll
Yeah.
come in now. And then decompressing together afterwards is
Yes.
huge. So,
Yes. And I think for us, it's been really great to see like which parent, like, because we all have communication styles that are different. And it's
Yep.
like, I've learned that typically my communication style aligns with my daughter, and his communication style aligns with our son. But there are moments like even last night it flipped. Like I was the one to go talk to him and have that moment, and I'm super thankful to have that moment of conversation of just a tough day at school kind of thing. But it's interesting to learn, and you see how the patterns kind of work out. It's like, all right, Daddy Michael is gonna go talk to Mariah now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
There's a general good guy and bad guy with each one, but
Yeah.
sometimes it switches.
Yeah.
That's just how you keep them on your toes, on
Right.
their
Yes.
toes, rather.
Yeah.
I will let you get back to your day, but before I let you go, are there any pearls of wisdom that you have for people who are, with the focus of this podcast being the opportunity to provide some answers or some clarity to people who are thinking about starting their own families. They're in the queer community, so they know they aren't going to just necessarily happen to get pregnant. So, are there any pearls of wisdom or gems that you would want to share with those who are considering foster parenting?
Mine, and it sounds abstract, I guess, but it's like have your people around you first. And having a child enter your world and your partnership, your relationship, it's a big undertaking. And I think people asking or thinking about kids aren't underestimating that, but I think you don't know what you don't know, kind of thing. And so we've brought up our family, we've brought up our friends multiple times. And even in the fostering world, like we've had support groups because just because we have our family, they don't really know what it means to foster a kid that's not biologically yours. So having that support group for foster parents was huge, and having classes that really broaden our perspective of like what it looks like it means to parent kids who've gone through trauma, specifically like our kids. um we were able to relate on that level, and so having your people around you before you even jump into this, I think, is huge.
Yeah. And for me, it's being curious. That's one of the big things is, just because you think there's one way to do things, there truly is more. So like be curious, look at the different avenues, like I mentioned, have a strong relationship with your partner. And foster care is a great way to do that. It's tough at times, it's very tough. And the training that you go through is pretty extensive. You see some things and hear stories that are very heartbreaking, but it's one of the most rewarding things that you could do in your life.
um and honestly, I think it applies to also just single people wanting kids too, because you don't necessarily have to have a
It's not
partner to have a
impossible.
kid. It's just, I will say it again, have your people around you,
Yep.
because by yourself, I applaud you.
Yes.
Yes,
I
and,
applaud you.
and it is absolutely possible. There are
Yes.
the right kind of
We've
people.
witnessed it.
Yes, there were multiple people in our classes that they were single individuals wanting to just foster, wanting to adopt. We have met some people, single individuals who have already adopted 3 or 4 from foster care. So
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's multiple paths.
Good for
Yeah,
them.
and just because
Yeah.
you're in a relationship does not mean it's not for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, one last question, I promise, and then I'll let you get back to your day. But what is your very, very favorite part of parenting Austin and Mariah?
Hmm.
I would say for me, it's just the joy that you can see within them. They didn't always live together, and so this is probably the longest amount of time that they have lived together.
Okay.
So of course there's the fighting between siblings that you usually have, but it's also the joy. And Austin is the biggest love bug there ever is. He has a lot of knowledge.
Yeah.
Mariah is our girl that is, 6 going on 13, and just seeing how both of them can think about things in different ways and the way they talk about it. It's just there's many times that I'm amazed at how far they've come in just the past 2 years. I'm so proud of them with all that they've accomplished.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I think for me, it is the little moments, and I think just like I was talking about with Austin last night, like we noticed a few things like a couple days in a row, and it's like to get to have the opportunity to be the person to explain the world to them and why people do things that might hurt you or make you upset or make you super happy. Like it's not always the bad stuff like you're there to fix, but it's like explain the good things too, and
Yeah.
to be that person that I get to, let them know that no matter what shape, size, color, orientation, all the above, like we get to choose to be the good guy and choose to be the person that loves others. And that was something he's going through. He's going through a bully moment at school. And it's like, you can choose to be the good guy. And that's when you get to win, is when you choose to be good and you choose to love that person, even when they're being mean to you. And I was like, I was I was like at the end of it, I was like, I'm so glad I got to have this moment because
Yeah.
like, and it's still weighing on my mind and heart today. I'm like, I love that. Like, I love that I got to be that person
That's
for
pretty
him.
amazing. That's amazing. That's a pretty great way to wrap up a wonderful conversation. I want to thank you both for taking the time to chat with me today and share your story of family creation with me and my listeners. It's truly been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
As a queer individual with colonial lineage, I want to first acknowledge the land upon which I live and work. Being from what is now known as Burlington, Ontario, I recognize the original ancestry of these lands as they span from Lake Ontario to the Niagara Escarpment and beyond. These lands are steeped in Indigenous history that benefits my community every day. The territory is mutually covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy, the Ojibwe, and other allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which I stand is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. The land dictates everything about our ways of being. Particularly, the land teaches us about fluidity. Concepts of the binary system and heteropatriarchy were imposed by the colonials who were, at the same time, removing children from their homes, families, and all that was familiar to them. These same children were divided by the only two prescribed binaries recognized by the settlers, and they were forced to conform to a performative, gendered falsehood. The land doesn't operate under binary thinking. It is diverse, complex, and unpredictable at times. Rather, the land holds us and all of our remarkable paths and identities. Every organism and spirit has a purpose. It is from this understanding that I strive to live and grow. Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.